How good are you at Tekken 8? Tekken is one of the most popular fighting games out today. However, it's also one of the most complex fighting games out as well. If you're going to put time into it, you should at least have an idea of how good you are. Since most people play online, that'll be the focus of this video. If you primarily play offline, then I'll suggest that you go to your locals or start going to offline tournaments to kind of get an idea and gauge how good you are in Tekken 8. So with online, most people will tell you if you want to know how good you are, just basically go off of your online rank, assuming you didn't cheat. Here I actually agree that a player's rank will give you a decent to a good idea of how good they are. And I mean that from you looking at yourself as a player as well as somebody else just looking at your rank. Now, why do I say decent to a good idea? Because of this, knowledge checks. A character in Tekken can easily have over 100 moves. Take into account that some of these characters have stances with unique properties. Properties can change when a move lands on counter hit. Tekken 8 now has heat, which adds a whole lot more depth to it. Raised drives for one thing, heat and heat smash and heat burst, that's a whole nother level of depth in my humble opinion. Now, multiply that by multiple characters. Multiply 100 moves with unique properties, with different types of properties on counter hit. Now add heat and multiply by like 30 characters for what we have now. I think we have like 30, 33 or something like that. But my point is in the year, we'll have a lot more. Now think about what I just said in terms of knowledge check. That is so much to remember. It's so much. And honestly, guys, unless you're a pro player, chances that you will remember everything for every character is it's probably not gonna happen. So don't even waste your time trying to remember every single thing about every single character, unless you are trying to do this at a professional level. Because knowledge checks, some characters, if I'm being real, are a lot harder to beat than others simply because of knowledge checks, because they're not used as much or they're not as popular in rank. And unfortunately, because of that, this is my whole point of saying is the better skilled player does not always win in rank. And most seasoned Tekken players know that. That's not making an excuse. I'm just telling the truth. Okay, that's just the way it is. And let me be very clear here, guys. That does not mean that you take away the credit from the other player just because they're using a character that is not as popular or they're doing some type of stance move that you haven't seen yet, so they're beating you off of your lack of knowledge. That does not mean you take away from that person's credit. That's not fair. In Tekken 7 Season 1, it was much harder for me to get Jin and Kazuya to Warrior than it was for me to get Josie and Miguel to Vanquisher. Does that mean that I should lose credit for playing Josie and Miguel? No, that's not fair. It's just, for one, it's just a game. Keep that in mind. It's just a game. But for two, if somebody finds somebody they like and they put a lot of hard work into that character, it is not their fault that that character is not popular. You should play who you like, point blank period. That is my humble opinion. However, that does not take away the fact that when you came across like a Lei Wulong in Tekken 7 when he finally came out, that you may not have known how to deal with all of his like 50 stances, because again, that's factual. So that person may be getting easy wins off of you. Facts. So yeah, don't take away any credit for them, but that does not mean that they are the better players, is my point. By the end of Tekken 7, I remember feeling like if you were Mighty Ruler higher, then you were probably a decent to a solid Tekken player, especially if you hit like Emperor. For Tekken 8, at least in my experience so far, I know the game hasn't been out a long time, I feel like if you are Genbu, if you hit the red ranks with Genbu, you are a decent player. If you can hit Fujin or up, you are probably a solid Tekken player. Now, I know a lot of people might not agree with that because of it feels like a lot of people are ranking up really fast in Tekken 8. It doesn't feel like the way it was in Tekken 7, but that's just my thoughts and my opinion. Now, there has been videos going out with rank distribution, and I believe the last video I saw said Genbu was where most people were. So you could even use that as kind of like your guiding point. Like if the average player is around Genbu, then I would say then you are probably at least average skill set if you are at least at Genbu. But if you're at Fujin or higher, I do think you are probably a solid Tekken player. You may not be pro level, you may not be elite, but I would say decent to solid from at Genbu, roughly solid around Mighty Ruler. Fujin, I would say you're a solid Tekken player. That's my opinion from a rank perspective. Now let's talk about Tekken prowess. Okay, so from my memory and understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments or just let me know if I'm missing something. Tekken prowess is calculated from your highest ranking character, all of the total ranks that you've earned for your characters, your total wins, and your online stats. I believe that's how they calculate it. It's like a combination of multiple things. I would assume they kept that same calculation protocol for Tekken 8. So again, if your highest character, say in Tekken 8, is like Fusion, would say Fang. Everybody's talking how Fang is whatever. He's one of my main characters, so I don't really listen to that. But yeah, he is really strong. And then say your next 3 characters are Mighty Rulers, maybe King, Paul, and Hwoarang or something like that. And then that makes your Tekken prowess to be like 150,000 or something like that. And your online stats now. Online stats for Tekken 8, I don't completely understand how they're calculating those, because it seems to be a lot more of those in Tekken 7. But again, I'm going to assume that they're still taking that into consideration for the calculation process for Tekken prowess. So Tekken prowess is a combination of many things, and I would say your online rank, honestly, is probably more important than your Tekken prowess. I only say that because you can have a character be Tekken King, and that'd be the only character you have, the only character you play. Whereas somebody else might have a character that is Fusion, but then they have another 10 characters that is like, Mighty Ruler or something like that, and they may have a Tekken process close to yours. I would probably say the guy who's Tekken King, if they earned it, is probably a more skilled player. That is not a guarantee, but that's kind of where my head would go, because I do think it's a lot harder to rank one character up to like Tekken King than it is to get one character to Fusion and then another like 10 characters to Mighty Ruler. That's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong about that. Also, you can take in consideration the type of characters, like who you're choosing to rank up, because I do personally feel like there are characters in Tekken that are a lot harder to play than other characters. Like I said, getting Josie to Vanquisher in Season 1 was much easier than getting Jin to Warrior in Season 1 in Tekken 7, and Vanquisher is a lot higher rank. So in conclusion, and again guys, this is subjective, this is my opinion, I would honestly say if you have a character, if your highest character is at least Mighty Ruler, and or your Tekken prowess is 150 points, at least 150 points, I would say you're at least an intermediate level Tekken player, minimum. You're definitely not a beginner, and you're probably not beginner intermediate either, you're probably solid intermediate. If you have, let's say your highest character is around Fusion and your Tekken prowess points is 200k or higher, I would say you're a extremely solid Tekken player. You're probably advanced, like beginner advanced, late intermediate to beginner advanced. Anything higher than that, in my humble opinion, you're a very, very good Tekken player. If you literally are Tekken King or higher, or you are over 250k Tekken prowess, I think you're pretty very good Tekken player. You should be very proud of yourself. This is a very complex game. Don't compare yourself to the pro players as much as I hear some people do, guys. These guys are into it. This is what they do. This is what they do. And I know this is online. A lot of people are going to say rank doesn't matter. Online doesn't count. If that was the case, I personally feel like everybody would have no problem hitting Tekken King, and that's not the case. So I do think that if you want to judge your skill level from your rank, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you got that rank honestly. And I don't care if you use like a Lang Xiyu or you use Jin. It doesn't really matter to me. As long as you got there honestly, you should be very proud of the rank that you got. Anyway, this is the end of this video. I didn't want it to be really long. If you guys like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. All support is, I always say, is very much appreciated. This is your boy Acid Light. You guys take care.